October may be over, but that doesn't mean I'm done talking about horror movies just yet. With today being the return of the Unlucky Friday, it's time once again to jump into the iconic slasher series, Friday the 13th. And today we're getting into one of the most infamous sequels in this series, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Like most of the previous entries, Part 8 was hated by critics, and the film remains pretty dividing amongst certain Friday the 13th fans. The main thing being, the title is extremely misleading. Jason Takes Manhattan immediately makes you think that Jason's gonna be in New York wrecking havoc, and while it does, that is not the main plot of the film. The plot is about Jason being resurrected once again by dumb luck after being rechained at the bottom of Crystal Lake in Part 7. And once he's out, he jumps aboard a cruise ship making its way from Crystal Lake to the Big Apple. Because apparently Crystal Lake is connected to the fucking Atlantic and there's enough space for it to squeeze its way out.
Right, okay people, you have to tell me these things. I'm the boss. Need the info.
As the ship makes its way to Manhattan, carrying a graduating high school class, Jason, as you'd expect, hacks his way through the teenagers and a few adults, until ultimately a storm mixed with a lack of crew and a few specifically placed dead bodies causes the ship to sink, forcing the few survivors to jump ship and make their way via rowboat to New York City. And when they finally reach the Big Apple, guess how far into the movie we are? An hour and 2 minutes. Yeah, Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan doesn't actually have Jason take Manhattan until over 2/3 into the fucking movie.
That's fucking crazy, man.
But with that being said, I actually kind of enjoyed Jason Takes Manhattan.
Operator, I got a nut down here that says... No, it's not paramedics. I think... You all right?
Yes, the title is misleading, and it's pretty easy to forget that this movie's gonna take place in Manhattan, but it's still a pretty enjoyable and, honestly, very creative entry in the Jason Voorhees saga. My friend Mike Sintros really enjoys this movie and summarized it best as a guilty pleasure, and that is exactly what I would use to describe Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan. A guilty pleasure. This movie is wonderfully dumb, and after the telekinesis shit in Part 7, it was clear they were really struggling to come up with original ideas for this franchise. And for what they tried to put together, we got a very well-paced and extremely entertaining horror movie with a few comedic elements. The first half, which takes place almost entirely on the cruise ship, is actually pretty well made, and the film's writer-director, Rob Hedden, came up with 2 script ideas for Part 8. One was a story about Jason being on a cruise ship, the other was about Jason going to New York. After it was clear that Paramount could not afford to shoot entirely in New York, he decided to morph the 2 ideas together.
I'm looking for something that'll break through, you know, something tough.
As far as moving Jason away from Camp Crystal Lake, Rob Hedden said, "He just wanted to get Jason out of that stupid lake he's been hanging out at."
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Later credits of his included You May Not Kiss the Bride, The Condemned, and the Nickelodeon movie Clock Stoppers. Producing duties went to Randy Chevel-Dave, who would later go on to produce the TV show Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. Clearly Paramount was picking the, right people. The music score, composed by Fred Mullen, returning from Part 7 The New Blood, as well as the Friday the 13th anthology TV show, is pretty fucking good. music in this film succeeds in being both chilling, adding to the suspense, but also having a bit of a party side. And we get a great opening theme song played over an excellent montage of New York City called The Darkest Side of the Night by Metropolis. The film does feel a little slow in certain areas. This is actually the longest entry in the Friday the 13th franchise at 100 minutes, and while I like long movies, this definitely feels a little longer than what this film should be. There's a handful of hokey and sometimes retarded moments, but it is a really enjoyable roller coaster ride of a film. And the film has a mostly pretty well assembled cast. The main character, Rennie, is very well acted by Jensen Daggett, who apparently beat out Elizabeth Berkley and Pamela Anderson for the role. And Rennie's boyfriend, Sean, played by Scott Reeves, who was cast at the last minute after the producers felt the original actor they hired had no sexual chemistry with Daggett, is one of the better boyfriend characters in the movie, and I guess taking a note from Part 7, this film actually gives us a really good and pretty well developed couple. They do have good chemistry together. You really want to see them make it to the end. Not to say the film isn't without its bad characters. The cruise is being chaperoned by two of the high school teachers. Colleen Van Dusen, played by Barbara Bingham, a teacher who is very close and protective of Rennie, although maybe a little too close. I mean, it's not the most inappropriate teacher-student relationship I've ever seen, but it seems like she's a little too attached to this particular girl.
Go on, open it. Stephen King supposedly used it in high school.
Got just 2 words to say about that. Bullshit!
The other teacher, Charles McCulloch, played by Peter Mark Richmond, is actually Rennie's uncle, and oh my god. This cocksucker is both the most entertaining, but also the worst character in the film.
And I know what's best for her. I'm the one you should be listening to!
Are you girls using drugs?
This guy is every uptight, authoritarian teacher stereotype you've ever seen. The writing for him is as asshole-ish as you could get, and I'm not sure what the direction was, but Peter Mark Richmond, his acting is fucking bad in this film. I know he's supposed to be playing a stiff douchebag, but Jesus Christ, these line readings are awful.
You're going to be very, very sorry, young lady. You can forget about attending any film school. Ever!
I will give him this. You want to see this character die, especially as the film goes on and it's revealed that a lot of Rennie's issues and damaged personality stems from an incident where her uncle tried to teach her how to swim by throwing her in Camp Crystal Lake and almost letting her drown.
I was only trying to teach you.
What an asshole. And it wouldn't be a Friday the 13th film without our token bitch, which we get in Tamara Mason, played by Charlene Martin. This character isn't in the film much, but they make good use of her. They make her a pretty unlikable character. Highlighted in one scene where, afraid that Rennie might have ratted her and her friend out to the teachers for doing cocaine, she actually tries to kill her by knocking her overboard.
What the fuck is wrong with you people?
And when confronted by Rennie's uncle, she tries to seduce him and...
I mean, really?
I don't think he was objecting enough. And then we see Tamara had the whole thing filmed and threatens to ruin McCulloch unless he leaves her alone. And he still doesn't object nearly as much as he should.
Give me that tape.
Come and get it.
This whole scene is every perverted teacher's fantasy come true and every decent teacher's worst nightmare.
I'm so glad the bitch is gone.
There's a big handful of other teenagers, but most of them could pretty much be chalked up as meat for the grinder. A couple of them played by actors in some of their very first roles, including Kelly Hu, who would later go on to do X-Men 2 and The Scorpion King, and Gordon Curry, who some religious nuts and cinema snob fans might recognize as Nikolai Carpathia from the Kirk Cameron Left Behind movies. The only other kid worth mentioning is Julius, a boxing champion, played by V.C. Dupree. His character doesn't really get anything memorable until his inevitable death scene, but I'll get into that a little later. The only returning actor from Part 7 is Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees, making him the first actor to play Jason more than once. While I'm not 100% convinced Kane Hodder is the ideal Jason, he does play the character very well, and it's easy to see why they brought him back. He's got a great build, he's got the movement down, although I could do without Jason always catching up with the people who are running, even though he himself never runs, an idea Kane himself suggested. After Part 6, anything was fair game in the supernatural department, but this film goes the route of being supernatural and not making any goddamn motherfucking sense. Throughout the film, the Rennie character keeps having hallucinations where Jason, in the form of the little kid he was when he almost drowned all the way back in the first film, constantly appearing and grabbing at her, begging for help. And we never get a semblance of why this is happening, nor is it ever explained.
What the hell's going on here?
Also, the opening scene of the movie.
Got you good, Susie.
The opening scene of Friday the 13th Part 8 is just all over the place in terms of good and bad. It opens with a teenage couple on a yacht having sex. The boyfriend, for some reason thinking it'd be kinky, goes into the history of Camp Crystal Lake, which they're on, and the tale of Jason Voorhees.
Just over right around that summer camp where all those murders took place.
What murders?
If you believe the stories.
What stories?
I refuse to believe anybody who lives near Camp Crystal Lake would not know who Jason Voorhees is. He even brings up the fact that there's a returning pattern.
And every now and then, the murders just start up.
And while it's all part of a joke he's playing, I ask, as I did in Part 7, why would anybody still come to this fucking lake? There's been multiple serial killings. They happen every 5 to 10 years.
Forget about it, Susie. They're just stories.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
But then they start to bang, and we get a pretty nice panty shot of the girl. And an even sexier one of her boyfriend.
Great ass!
Then we get the inevitable perfect circumstance moment where Jason is resurrected via electricity. We get a stupid moment of the boyfriend freaking out the girlfriend, and then a redeemingly terrific moment where Jason kills the couple. This is one of the best opening kill scenes this franchise has ever had. And sadly, we still don't have as many graphic gore scenes as the original movies in the series had, but they still have more blood than Part 7, and while they may lack in graphic carnage, the deaths are extremely creative. The best one in the first half is when Jason kills this boy in the sauna by grabbing a hot rock. He's a zombie, it doesn't hurt him, and jamming it right through the boy's stomach. We also get some creative deaths involving a guitar, a disco, which Kane Hodder would apparently dance in full Jason getup to amuse the cast, and electrocution. After jumping overboard and rowing to the point that I think their arms would have fallen off, the few survivors finally make their way to New York City.
The city of nightlife, the city
And once we finally get to New York City, the film kind of takes a little slow pace, but then we get one of the most kick-ass Jason finales you will ever see.
Give me your money. Everyone shut up and give him the money.
After getting mugged by a street gang who kidnap Rennie, drug her, and straight up try to rape her, Jason kills the muggers, has a face-off with Julius the boxer, and one of the most hilarious and my buddy Mike's personal favorite scene in the movie. Julius lays all of his punches into Jason to the point that his fists are bleeding, and too tired to go further, says,
Take your best shot, motherfucker.
After laying in over a minute of non-stop punching, Jason knocks his fucking head off in one hit.
That motherfucker's dead.
I mean, hey, he was black, so it was inevitable he was gonna die, but at least they waited until near the end to give him the best death scene in the movie. Both of the teachers end up dying. Van Dusen in a car explosion, which, honestly, I almost missed the fact that she died, just because it happened so suddenly, and her character really wasn't that memorable. McCulloch gets not quite the most gruesome, but still a pretty satisfying death, where he gets drowned in a barrel of what appears to be toxic sludge.
What a useless guy.
Rennie and Sean run for their lives through the New York subway system. Jason still somehow manages to catch up with them, even though he supposedly doesn't run anymore. He gets electrocuted on a train track, chases them up to Times Square, passes by another street gang, and for no reason just kicks their boombox through the air. The gang pulls out knives, ready to attack, and in a moment that is both hilarious but a little out of character, Jason lifts up his mask and the gang, shocked by his grotesque face, are just like,
Yo, man, it's cool. It's cool, man. It's cool.
it made me laugh, but since when has Jason ever been the type of killer to fuck with his victims? I think he normally would have just killed them on the spot. They run to this diner, yell at a waitress that there's a maniac trying to kill them, and the waitress, not even blinking an eye, simply says,
Welcome to New York.
The city of passion, this town has a heart.
But her mood changes when Jason breaks down the door, and I love the reaction, and the diner cook stands up, but Jason throws him right into the mirror. That cook is played by the film's stunt coordinator, Ken Kersinger, who would actually later go on to play Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. Rennie and Sean make their way into the New York sewer. They bump into a sewer worker who tells them they have to get out because
toxic waste, son. The sewer floods out with this stuff every night at midnight.
Sure. Jason catches up. Rennie throws what appears to be toxic waste in his face, causing his mask to burn. He yanks it off and this is not the best unmasked look Jason has had. Maybe this would scare some people, but after part 7, this new look is just a bit of a letdown. Grabbing her by the ankle, it seems like Sean and Rennie are done for, but then the toxic waste starts to flow, and I'm guessing this is where Ronnie, you got the Jason is scared of water bullshit idea for Freddy vs. Jason from. And in a pretty impressive behind-the-scenes moment, for this scene, Kane Hodder apparently drank over 2 liters of water and made himself throw up on command.
Oh, gnarly!
The toxic waste washes up Jason, and neither Sean nor Rennie take this opportunity to get up to the surface. They just stand there with toxic waste flowing inches away from their feet. A lot of mist emanating from the waste, which I think should have really hurt, if not have killed them. Looking down, they see that Jason, for no explained reason, is now a little kid again. And they just go back up to the surface, Rennie's reunited with her dog, and the credits roll.
Can we get away with it? Do we want to get away with it?
I think it'll get us an audience we've never had before.
I don't like it. Not tacking it.
Once again, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is a really dumb film, but it's amazingly dumb. Sure, the hallucination scenes border into Halloween 5 levels of bullshit, but this is still a competently made film. It has a good sense of humor. It's clear the actors are having fun, and it's one of the most kick-ass, turn-of-a-generation horror films you will ever see.
Nighttime is the right time.
Next to the negative reviews from critics and the fan backlash, Jason Takes Manhattan also suffered financially. Made on a budget of $5 million, the most expensive budget the Friday the 13th movies had had at the time, the film grossed about $14 million, which at the time was the lowest gross in the franchise. Shortly afterwards, Paramount would sell the rights to New Line Cinema, who would handle the next couple of movies, before Paramount took over again in 2009 with the Friday the 13th remake. Mixed with the change of format and also the fact that it was going up against Halloween 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, and Fright Night Part 2, it's not surprising that the film was not as successful as the previous entries. But the film is still extremely enjoyable, and if you've got a few friends, maybe give it a watch, break out a little booze, and maybe have a nice riff session. Some last-minute fun facts to go out on. When Jason arrives in Manhattan, originally he was supposed to kick a dog, but Kane Hodder felt, I think that's a little much even for Jason. Apparently Kane forgot that in Part 2, Jason did kill a dog. The film's marketing campaign was originally well received, especially due to a poster where Jason slashes through the I Love New York logo. But after a complaint from the New York City Tourism Committee, Paramount pulled the poster.
Bunch of slack-jawed faggots around here.
Hope you enjoyed this review. Next Friday the 13th, we'll be doing Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday.
Death wears many different masks. Pure evil wears only one.
You know what I've noticed? I see all your movies, man. And you know what I've really noticed? You're angry.